I remember having this debate with this person, and it's like no matter how many times I tried to voice my opinion and say to them, it's not a problem with people coming into, Western countries, immigrants per se coming into these Western countries. It wasn't the fact of the matter that I don't believe that people should start a life in America, even though we should understand that the American dream is practically dead now in 2024 and beyond. It's just the fact of the matter what is being done and what is these people's backgrounds, and that there's been so many reports of these migrants that has engaged in a lot of vices in people's homes or in the streets and in other places where people are trying to thrive and work and do what they do every day. Reported points of how a lot of the times American officials are trying to tell US citizens to take in migrants and have migrants inside of their homes, but at the same time, the mistreatment of the migrants are happening at a lot of these temporary camps that they're putting them in. And the fact of the matter is that they're malnourished, or all these different things is happening. So it's like a catch 22 on both sides. You take in the migrants and you clothe them, you bed them, you give them government jobs, and you allow them to have these like free money in these like big metropolitan cities that's usually ran by Democrats, Democrats, if you really want to call it. And then on the opposite spectrum, you're trying to hold people accountable and say that these people should welcome in migrants and that they should be a part of this country because we all are migrants in our own way. But a lot of people are missing the point of why the migrant crisis of today is totally different than how it was in the past. And I'm going to be reviewing this clip of the recent problems that happened in America, such as like a couple of migrants that beat up two NYPD officers in Times Square. And I'm going to have a conversation about it. So, Pete, fair use.
Now to the latest on that brutal attack against two NYPD officers. One of the suspects has now been indicted by a grand jury.
This comes amid a report that some of the other suspects have been arrested in Arizona. Fox 5's Chris Welch joins us now in studio with the latest today. Chris.
Yes, Steve, Natasha, that report coming from Fox News, which says that, quote, several men believed to be migrants who were arrested, then fled New York City, were apprehended at a bus station in Phoenix.
And before we continue, what has been known by like people personally, such as myself and other people around me, we have discovered that a lot of these migrants travel in groups, and that usually, even when it comes to a lot of the jobs that they do, which is usually deliveries at this point, that a lot of them travel in packs. So it'd be about 3 or 4 migrants on scooters, mopeds, and all these different things traveling around or and sending off food. But at the same time, there has become such a war where they're competing off of those orders. So a lot of chaos comes into these cities, and more specifically, if you're thinking about it on a spiritual sense, it's because we're living in the last days. I'm not saying necessarily that's an excuse to why that is, but at the same time, just paying attention. A lot of these different things happen for various of reasons, and I'm going to continue to talk about it as the video goes on.
There's no comment at this time.
The attorney for Yohenry Brito not saying much today. Brito is right now the only suspect to be arrested and held on bail in connection to the assault on 2 police officers. He was in court today in connection to 2 prior misdemeanor charges. He's also now the only one to be indicted by the Manhattan grand jury, at least so far.
The district attorneys may be bringing new charges, but it's frustrating. It never should have happened.
Manhattan DA Alvin Brown.
And she says it never should have happened, but Kathy Hochul was already having a big fight with Eric Adams about these different issues. That's why I say a lot of the times these different mayors that's coming in, especially now in 2024, is only going to get worse as time goes on. And, I don't want to blame it on the fact of the matter that they're Democrats and all this other stuff, or Republicans, because it's 2 sides of the same coin. But the thing about it is that when you get these people that come in as politicians and you vote for them thinking it's going to be a better, favorable city, absolutely not. And that's why I always start to harp on a lot of people who decided to vote, who is president. Because the thing about it is, it was about paying attention to the policies, especially when it came to the whole entire thing about allowing immigrants into this country. And more specifically, more than that, I am not anti-immigrants. You understand? I'm not anti-migrant. I just believe that you have to pay attention to the background of a lot of these people out here, because it's been reported that a lot of these migrants have gang ties, that they're notoriously known for being in gangs and that they're gangsters. And the fact of the matter is that they have them all in at a certain size at a certain age, especially as we prep up for WW3. And I'll let you guess exactly what that is. It's pretty obvious. And the fact of the matter is, yeah, they're going to be able to vet them by putting them through jobs and giving them these free housings and all these different things, because they're prepping them up for something. And on top of that, while being able to prep these people up for something, at the same time, they're using this time to go ahead and use them as a guinea pig for the cashless society that's coming up. And so a lot of times people just, you have all these reckless arguments that, we as Americans should just accept migrants and we should just agree with it and get along with it. But it's like it's a whole entire loophole and a whole entire rabbit hole to exactly the things that's going on with these migrants coming in. Because especially with the migrants that come into big cities like New York, they're still being treated like trash. They're becoming the new homeless people in a lot of these Democratic ran cities. Therefore, they would get these treatments of where they'll be helped out, but it's not always a guarantee. And then with that, they get kicked out of these shelters, they get put out in the streets, and then they have to await all this paperwork in order to become a U.S. citizen on impact. But a lot of people don't feel me when I say that.
Bragg presented evidence today to that grand jury, which could also lead to new charges for any number of the about a dozen other migrants police say took part in that January 27th attack in Times Square. And according to Fox News, several men, reportedly suspects, were arrested Monday evening in Phoenix, Arizona. We are also awaiting arraignments for 2 suspects in the Bronx and 2 in Manhattan, who police say are part of a coordinated group on mopeds. They say they swipe victims' cell phones and later hack them for bank information. And on Long Island,
they spit on our flag, they trample on our values, and they commit crimes.
That was the message from Nassau County Executive Republican Bruce Blakeman earlier today, announcing they've arrested this man that they say is a migrant who stole someone's pro-Israel flag off their front porch. When the victim took off after the man, the suspect, they say, attacked.
Crimes committed because of our religion, the color of our skin, the way we dress, or who we love will be prosecuted vigorously and thoroughly by my office.
And back to that indictment of Yohenry Brito. We do not yet know specific charge or charges because that indictment remains under seal. However, he is set for an arraignment March 25th. Steve, back.
And my thing about it is as follows. Again, I usually have to tell people I'm not anti-immigrant or anti-migrant. The thing about this conversation is it starts to become a very uneasy conversation because on both sides, it can be seen as a bias or it can be seen as very logical. Now, with it being seen as bias is obviously the fact of the matter that if they're able to get all these free programs and they're able to have access to all this free care and all these different things in America, what gives for all the problems that's happening in America with the U.S. citizens, such as inflation, such as not being able to survive on the wages that they get from these different jobs, pensions being thrown out, and then the only thing to be relying on is probably 401ks, and if you get rich enough, a Roth IRA. With that being said, the whole cost of living, if the middle class is dead and it's only rich and poor, then you're getting migrants to come in. So is the expectation for migrants to become rich and them to climb the social ladder more than the U.S. citizens? Those are questions that you should ask. But obviously, a lot of these protests that go on is a lot of these people who do not understand what's going on. They're just reeling themselves off of emotions, not logic. Because then when it comes to the migrant people that live out on the streets in these big cities, are these people that's doing these protests daring to go ahead and put these migrants inside of their homes? More than likely not. So you're obviously taking it upon yourself to go on these different marches and these protests for the immigrants and the migrants that come into this country tenfold, especially through Biden. And especially if you've seen in the last couple of weeks about how Texas is sitting up there saying, we have all these cranes here to tell America no more borders. They're not building up these borders. We're not doing that. Stop now. Okay. And then we relate this thing to race because when it comes to a particular race of people, a nationality of people, the whole entire thing was to grandiose or get the numbers up so that they could be referred to as the new white population. And it's just funny how America is working anyway, because you start to see different places in America, more specifically the US and Canada, that people are leaving these countries in droves, especially immigrants that's been here for over 5 to 10 years. And that's a video I'm going to touch on later, but give me your thoughts in the comment section. Remember to like, share, subscribe. Peace.